Hey, hope you're doing good. We're here with a new Mundane Astrology video, God willing. So thank you for joining me. We're going to look at the Mundane Astrology for November and December 2021 for pretty much all parts of the United States. My name is Henry Harrison. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking my videos. Thank you for subscribing to my channel. I really appreciate it. I truly do. So I'd like to thank God who gives wisdom that we can look into these mysteries to the glory of his name. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank God. So I've tried to record this a few times over the past week or two, and I don't know what it was exactly, but I could not quite get it done in the way that I liked. So I prepared a more detailed set of notes for myself, and I hope that will help me, and God help me. So, all right, we're going to get right to it. We will start with the eastern side of the United States, generally from like the Mississippi eastward, and generally speaking, to the westward of the Mississippi for the western United States. So I have all my aspects drawn out for myself here. If you'd like to see that, let's do that. Okay. All right. So we pretty much start out with these sign changes of these inner planets here moving into the 2nd and the 12th house. No, what is that? I'm sorry. Well, I guess we'll start with Western United States. How about that? We'll start with you guys. All right, so it's a Sagittarius rising chart until the Capricorn ingress of the Sun. So you can see that Venus is moving into the 2nd mundane house, and Mercury is into the 12th. That's Capricorn and Scorpio, both on November 5th. And Venus in this chart is ruling the 6th house and the 11th house. And Mercury is ruling the 10th house and the 7th house. So Venus there is talking about what people are doing every day and how they're generally socializing, integrating with society, doing business within society. Mercury there is ruling the 10th house of the government structure and the system generally, and the 7th house of one-on-one interactions. So things really do change. They move from the 1st house and the 11th house. So things, I would say, take a bit of a more gloomy turn or a dim turn with Mercury moving into the 12th and other planets already in the 12th. So we have here that Mars is in the 12th with the Sun. And the Sun in this chart is indicating the 9th house of foreign interests, but the Sun also indicates the administrators of the government in general. So they're in a more of a strait in this situation. Since they don't have very much dignity, the Sun doesn't in Scorpio, and Mars has regained some dignity there. So Mars is signifying the secret enemies of the people, and the 5th house of love, recreation, children. So with the 9th house ruler and the 10th house, so with these 3 planets and the moon here going through this house, I would say that there is a lot of tension around children, foreign interests, things kind of boiling over, not really knowing who the enemies are. Really, they're hidden in this chart, and they're in a good position. Jupiter is indicating the 1st house, so that's the people in general. So their enemies are stronger in this chart than they were before. All right, let's make sure I don't forget what I'm doing. All right, so on November 6th, Venus will make a sextile to Mercury. So these two things are working. They're in a new house here, but they're working things out in a way that's helpful, I think. These isolated, behind the scenes type of behaviors people are going through, these significators are going through, working with the people's what they're doing every day and their society. But that energy is really getting focused on the money or what people have in general. So the 10th house, the government, I need to figure out a better way. I keep stumbling over my words when I try to talk about what the 10th house is, because it's really like the government structure rather than the administrators themselves, which are more indicated by the 10th house. They're all there together. So the secret enemies of the government, the sun, also the government, Mercury, are all together here in the 12th house. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes that people aren't seeing that is generally not for their better interests. So we have the Mars, but Mercury and Mars are making a square to Saturn on the 10th. So things have been boiling over, and they come to a head here when the 10th house ruler and the 12th house ruler conjoin. Now, they are also the 7th house ruler and the 5th house ruler, respectively. So, recreation, people seeing each other, one-on-one interactions, those things are happening, but the same, like in the background, the hidden enemies of the people and the government are meeting in this secret place. And I think it's very loud because Mercury amplifies Mars. And they're both at a square to Saturn. And Saturn here is the 3rd house ruler and the 2nd house. So we're talking about the literal streets, the actual places you can go out and drive and walk in, your neighborhoods. There's restriction there, but there's also Jupiter is also there, bringing something new and helpful in the overall scheme of things. And the sun is coming up to a square. That's why I mentioned it. So the sun is coming up to a square to that Jupiter as well. So there's tension between the 12th house themes and the 3rd house themes that are about to blow up. This could literally, because we're talking about mundane astrology, this is literally the streets. If this could be traffic or transit being impossible or very restricted, and the hidden enemies of the people also causing that or coming up against that, which is, I don't know exactly what that looks like, so I wonder. On the 15th, the sun makes a square to Jupiter. And the sun here is either the hidden enemies of the government or the foreign interests are coming up against the 1st house ruler and also the 4th house ruler. So there's a lot of hidden, subtle things coming out, like things coming from behind the curtain affecting the significator of the people. So overall, there's things going on that people aren't seeing easily because they're in the 12th house. They're hidden or reserved or happening in the background. But they're affecting the main things that the people are concerned with: their person, their money, the 2nd house, their ability to transit and to go about their business. It's the 3rd house. And their home, their 4th house. These are all being squared and symbolically challenged by everything that's going on in Scorpio behind the scenes. Mercury comes up on the 20th to make a square to Jupiter, and Mercury is indicating the government and the one-on-one interactions, making a square to Jupiter, who's indicating the people, their home life. So there's a sense of, because this is all coming from the 12th house, like a secret deliberations against the people's interests. The sun moves into Sagittarius on the 21st, and that is the first house. And the north node, or the south node, is right there in the first degree of Sagittarius. So the sun, the 9th house ruler, is going over the south node in the first house. Mercury also enters Sagittarius, moves through the south node, and is conjunct the sun on November 28th. This could be literally a prominent meeting of the government and foreign leaders, or the government engaging in foreign affairs in a very noticeable way, being in the ascendant. Mercury and the sun will both make a sextile to Saturn. And this is the solar eclipse. And I should have already mentioned the lunar eclipse. Sorry, I have a lot of marbles here. But earlier on in the month, on the 19th, there was a partial lunar eclipse in the 6th house of Taurus. So, and square to Jupiter. So there's a sense that what people are able to do every day relative to their money is eclipsed. I see being at a square to Jupiter there, being like there's a way that people want to expand, like literally in their community and in their environment, but there's a sense that what people are able to do every day is eclipsed. Which brings me back to December the 3rd, which is the day of the partial solar eclipse. It bleeds into the 4th, but it's in the first house. The moon in this chart is the 8th house ruler, and they are with the 10th house ruler, and the 7th house ruler, and the 9th house ruler. So there's really a focus on government, foreign interests, death, losses, and one-on-one interactions, and how those are coming about for the people in general. Those are going to be the major themes for people in general at this time. There being so much emphasis on the first house. All right, so just making sure we talked about the eclipses there. On the 8th, Mars makes a square to Jupiter. From the 12th house to the 3rd house. So there's another challenge of the people's enemies to what people are able to do. You know, like the 3rd house and the 6th house kind of have a tone or a connotation of what you can do every day, especially the 6th house. But the third house is like where you can go, like your neighborhood, and there's a restriction there. But there's also a new possibility, a new development that's coming about, and not really going to be stopped either. But there is a challenge to that from the 12th house ruler, the people's hidden enemies. Because Mars is also the 5th house ruler, it could be somehow related to relationships or love, and that is coming up against challenges with travel, transportation, the restrictions there, how much we can really do at this time in that way. But it is interesting that Mars is in the 12th and doing all of this. I'm not. It's unclear what that is, because Mars is very good in Scorpio. He does what he does very, very well. But the nature of that is unclear. Or it's not obvious, being in the 12th. So on the 13th, Mars will move into Sagittarius, move over the south node, and Mercury will move into Capricorn on the same day. So Mars will be in the 1st, and Mercury will be in the 2nd. So there's more emphasis on money. Both Venus and Mercury are concerned with the money that people have, and how things are going to change with it, seeing that Venus is going to retrograde on the 19th. Venus, again, is the 6th house ruler and the 11th house ruler, so that's what people do every day, their routines, their small animals. And then on the 11th house side, the society or the community or the business network that people have is all talked about. It's all Venus. And Venus has been concerned with money, what people literally have during this time. So when Venus begins to retrograde, there'll be a transformation that happens over a few weeks, I think, there. So there's a way that people want to be moving ahead with money matters, with social matters, with being able to do the kind of routine that you want. How you can afford that is kind of what it looks like, and there's a change, or Venus has to go through a process where those things are they're changing. Especially, it's relative to the money, but it's the things that are changing is the social stuff and then the routine stuff for people. So there's generally a large change of routine that happens starting at the end of December, the Venus as Venus retrogrades. Okay, well, the sun moves into Capricorn. Let me get some water here. I feel like I'm doing pretty good. Thank God. I think you're getting some of what I wanted to communicate. It's really like knowing which house these things are going to be coming from. It makes it very clear what's really going on around you. Okay. That's December 19th. So here's the thing, though. We have to... kind of glad we started with a more difficult chart here. So the next aspect is the sun moves into Capricorn. So I have to change the charts here. There we go. So now it's a Capricorn rising chart. So now, actually, the things that people have been concerned with are completely changed, or what's running them has changed. Okay, so starting here, the moon moves into Capricorn, which is now the first house. So all of a sudden the administrators of the government are very prominent, extremely prominent, and so are the Mercury and Venus. And now Mercury is ruling the 9th house and the 6th house. So the 9th house and the 6th house. Venus is concerned with the 10th house and the 5th house. So the operation of the government and love, pleasure, children, so on, relationships. So those concerns become much more prominent rather than the ones that, well, think about it. So we were talking about Venus being retrograde there. We were concerned with 6th house topics and 11th house topics, right? Well, we're still concerned with 6th house topics, it looks like, because Mercury is still in the 1st house, so moving fast, letting us know what we're going to be doing every day. Mercury is what we're doing every day in this chart. And also travel, foreign travel. So potential for travel. People are traveling now prominently right before Christmas, right? So Mercury is very, very, very prominent there. And the Sun is ruling the 8th house now. So the Sun is now a cause of a loss. So the 8th house energy is now very prominent here. And we see that now Jupiter is ready to pass into the next sign, and the nodes have changed signs here. The nodes changed signs on the 22nd. So they're now in the 11th and the 10th house, or the 5th house. So the North Node is in the 5th house now, and the South Node is in the 11th house. And why that's important is that Jupiter immediately makes a square to both of those. So now what Jupiter is doing is he's in the 2nd house now, and he's moving into the 3rd house. So now we have the 3rd house with Jupiter ruling the 3rd house and the 12th house. So Mars is again in the 12th house during this part of the revolution. So Jupiter, that's right. So Jupiter in the 3rd, he's making a square to the North Node in the 5th and the South Node in the 11th. So the North Node is kind of what we're hungry for, what people are really going after or seeking, really. So seeking pleasure, seeking love, seeking all the good things. The South Node is kind of like what we're sitting in, or like what we just are kind of like too comfortable in, really. That would be here like the society in general. So Jupiter is opening up in a fateful way here. This ability to do travel in the neighborhood, like neighborliness is possible here. The 5th house things are going through this transformation as well as the 10th house things. So this is like a large change in the government, seeing that Venus is ruling the 10th house. And we see that the Sun being in the 1st house is very prominent, right? So, and his 8th house energy is very much in the 1st house. So there's this very visible, obvious change with the government in these two ways. With the Sun, kind of like the leaders are definitely going out here, and the government structure itself is changing a lot with the 10th house being that way. So okay, all right, so that is pretty much what I wanted to share with you for that one. I think there's one more aspect, and that was On the 29th, Mars makes a sextile to Saturn. Mars, Saturn, Saturn, Mars. 12th house, second house. So there's like more, like the restrictions, even though Saturn was ruling the second house in the previous chart we looked at, now Saturn is in the second house, ruling the second house. So there's a sense of discipline, limitation around what people actually have there. And with Mars in the 12th house, the people's hidden enemies, which are indicated by Jupiter, that's ruling the 12th house. Mars here is ruling the 4th and the 11th house. So the 4th house and 11th house ruler are in the 12th, making a sextile to the 1st and 2nd house ruler. So somehow people are benefited by their enemies, maybe. I mean, those are the two malevolent planets working together, and Saturn there is indicating the limitation of what people actually have. So the people's enemies are contributing to limiting what they actually have here in this chart. Mars is indicating the 4th and the 11th. So people in the society or people at home are somehow limiting what people can do, I would say. All right. Well, for better or worse, I thank you for listening. I'm sure for better. Pray to God for better. I hope you got something from that. So I'm going to post this video as, I guess, just the Western USA chart, because I'm not quite, I don't feel up to making the second part right now. Maybe I will just here in a second, but there'll definitely be separate videos because they're so long. Alrighty, hope that was cool. So God bless you. I hope you will become wise and understand the things of God in Jesus' name. So thank you again, and I'll see you next time.